So, how do you grade, and how can not having grades impact performance, and how will measuring learning happen in an atmosphere that's structured in that way?
Good. So this is a problem that, for a lot of people, they're like, what do you mean you're not going to have grades? So this is something we'll talk a lot about in the foundations class, because for high performing students who are kind of geared towards being perfectionists, they are like, I want an A. How do I know if it's an A? If it's, I need to have this A. And many of my former students were really obsessed with points. How many points is this worth? Can I get an extra point for this or do this? So we're not doing points and we're not doing grades. We're doing credit, no credit, which means students are expected to produce content, and that will be, part of our discussion when they choose to come to Pearl. You can't get credit for a class that you've never attended or that you've never turned anything in. I've actually had one doctoral student when I was teaching at the graduate level who went an entire term, never responded to my emails, never came to talk to me, and never turned anything. And he was just couldn't believe that he didn't pass the class. And I was like, what? Wait a second. You did nothing. Like, I had nothing to look at. So that's why it is credit or no credit. I mean, you have to produce something. And again, this is where differentiated instruction comes in. Your personal best and my personal best might look very different. So what we really want students to do is we want students to do their personal best and what that looks like. And their personal best during a COVID pandemic, when they're really worried about their families, might look very different than their personal best when everything in their lives is grooving and life is kind of normal. And I think
Yeah.
that's an important piece too. Right now, students have we all do. We have incredible high levels of anxiety. A lot of people are having sleeping disorders and those kind of things. So we want to be in tune to that as well and support students in that. It does take some time for students to switch their brains and be like, okay, so I'm not going to get an A, B, or C. So how do I know if it's good enough? And that's where the self-reflection comes in. Do you think it's good enough? What would good enough look like to you? How would you get there? And students will be expected to do that reflection because it's really part of our personal growth, right? To be able to criticize ourselves and not too harshly. So conversations about what that project looks like. I've often had students who gave me beautiful poems. I just loved them. And they're like, these are awful. Well, let's talk about, why do you think it's awful? What did you hope would have come out of it? And a lot of times they didn't really think it's awful. They're just not used to getting positive feedback, so they can't accept the positive, and so they shove it away.
Yeah.
So teachers will give feedback on every piece of the project, and then they will also have a narrative report at the end of every term. So that will go into the portfolio that students will have for attending college or for getting their high school diploma, depending on, again, what their structure is in their home area. And we have a project coordinator from Mexico and a project coordinator from the United States so far that's going to help figure out how to navigate all those different laws. Because in the US, the homeschooling laws vary by state. So we want to make sure that parents have support on kind of navigating some of that and figuring that out. But those narratives will be the grading.
Yeah.